How do you think food localism relates to sustainability?
I think a large part of sustainability is keeping money in the local economy. And one of the biggest things people spend their money on is food. And conventionally, if we're buying more processed foods or foods that are transported over long distances, that's sending money outside of the local economy. And if we can work more towards buying locally grown foods, spending money on foods grown by people of our community who are growing this food from the land within our community, then one, we're benefiting other community members who live among us, and two, we're keeping that money within our economy, and that not only builds sustainability, that builds resilience in our communities. And I think food is something that people always have to buy. Food is something that is inherent in all of our lives, and we have to buy it. We have to consume it every single day to live on. And people should be willing to spend a little extra money on local food because it builds that sustainability and that resilience within your community.
Describe some of the things that you've learned or seen in your sustainable agriculture class.
Oh man, I've seen a lot of really happy farmers. I think that sustainable agriculture, permaculture, agroecology, all these sorts of different words that sort of pertain to this same idea of getting away from conventional agriculture in a sense of monoculture, pesticide use, big large farms, moving away from that and getting back to working in the land and getting your hands dirty and really feeling out and becoming part of the farm and working with it instead of just applying a formula to the land and then using crop dusters and big tractors. And sure, you get to scale out of that and you get massive production benefits, but that sort of it erodes a certain fundamental aspect to the farmer, which is that connection to the land and the connection to the food. And I've seen a lot of really happy farmers because they have found that connection again and gotten back into working the land. And it creates, again, back to the question before, it creates those sustainable and resilient communities because you have farmers who are willing to put their energy and put their labor into the land, and out of it they get food for the community. And I think honestly we need more people like that. We need more people who are willing to go be farmers, more people who are willing to go put their work into the land, and not necessarily for profit, but for their deriving their own value from it, and people who really want to enjoy being a farmer and getting that value out of the land. So I've seen I think seeing happy farmers and seeing natural and good landscapes, I think that's one of the things I've drawn a lot from that class.
Okay. What change needs to happen for more businesses to be sustainable? Or farms even.
With respect to food,
mm-hmm.
especially. Yeah, so I think with that, I think that's more of a cultural thing, personally, because right now, in sort of the way our society and our culture looks at business is more of it's mostly comes down to cost. So if I'm a restaurant owner and I could go get my vegetables from Inspiration Farm, which is a permacultured farm, a wonderful farm in Whatcom County, but I'm gonna have to pay, I don't know, X dollars or whatever for those vegetables. Or I could go through a large distributor where I might not necessarily even know where those vegetables are coming from, but I could pay half the price for the same amount. As a restaurant owner, I'm likely going to go with that second option where I can save money, because in the end it kind of comes down to the bottom line. I think that it takes a cultural shift in assigning a certain value to getting your foods locally and being able to not only supply locally grown foods to your customers, but the other half of that equation is supporting the farmers growing that food. I think that takes a sort of shift in your mindset as a business owner, as even if it's just if you're just a grocery store owner, it's the same thing. You have to make those business decisions where you have to understand, are your customers going to want local foods? Are they going to want to pay extra for locally grown foods, or are they going to go to those big box market stores where you have really, really cheap veggies that came from who knows where? So I think building more sustainability in that sense of local food, that takes a sort of shift in the mindset and shift in how people value things.
Definitely. From all the local farms that you visited, have you noticed that they have used less pesticides?
Yes, that is most definitely true. It is also situationally based, and it depends on the one extreme. Inspiration Farm out in Whatcom County. It's a permaculture farm. A farmer, his name is Brian, and he gave us a pretty extensive tour of his farm, and he doesn't touch a single product that came from any kind of oil or natural gas or any fossil fuel. All of his farming practices use natural fertilizers, manure, or they use he uses animals to help till his land. He has one tractor that he uses just every once in a while to do things that he couldn't necessarily just do with a shovel. And he runs 100% biodiesel in his tractor. So the fuel that's running his tractor also came from growing canola, and that the carbon was sequestered out of there. So everything he does on his farm is away from pesticides, and that's because he's sort of changed the way he thinks about farming, and it's more about what can I get out of the land by letting it do its own thing, right? The sort of idea with permaculture is to try and recreate what nature intended it to be like. Try and recreate the forest on the farm, and that's exactly what he does. Is he lets things play out. He lets his farm drain naturally how it would. He builds his farm around the landscape, and because of that, he gets a lot of benefits from it. Now that takes a lot of knowledge and effort. You have to know what you're doing to be able to do that. He offers a crash course in permaculture as well. And that takes a lot of know-how and taking training. And okay, this dog is hilarious. But anyways, I'm kind of dragging on, being a dead horse here, but He just has an awesome farm, and he doesn't use any pesticides. But there are still people who we visited on farms who still choose to use certain fertilizers or certain pesticides. One farmer has said that growing apples in Washington without pesticides is just flat out nearly impossible to do. Because apples they are so prone to certain sort of bugs or worms, and you just have to use some sort of pesticide to be able to get rid of those, or else your whole crop's gonna get eaten up. So there are certain realities that as a farmer you must face. Are you gonna continue this? Are you gonna That's so funny. But yeah, right, realities, right? As a farmer, there are realities you face, and sometimes, really, the only choice you have is to throw down some sort of pesticide on your crops, or else they're all gonna go to mush. Would you rather see your whole crop go to waste, or apply some sort of pesticide and be able to sell your product. And I think a lot of farmers are faced with that today.
Yeah, it's a very hard trade-off.
It is. It's a very tough trade-off. And for farmers like Brian at Inspiration Farm, they understand that they will lose some of their crops. It's just part of being an entirely pesticide-free, organic permaculture farm. The way that he deals with that, though, is that because he has such a diverse set of foods that he grows on his farm, he loses his garlic one year, but his I don't know, his berries are doing really well. You know, maybe the next year his berries aren't doing so hot, but his garlic is doing fantastic. So it's kind of an ebb and flow, and so you always expect to lose a little bit, but even when you lose a little bit, there's a lot to gain in other crops. And I think I've seen a lot of that in some of the farms I've visited.
What do you think is the biggest barrier to food localism and sustainability?
I think in the community and building food localism and sustainability is, I think it's again it's a cultural thing in getting people to want to value food localism. And when you go to the grocery store, instead of just looking at how much do these veggies cost, or even whether it's organic or not, I think one of the more important things is this grown locally? Am I supporting a local farmer? A lot of people don't necessarily think about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to try and get people thinking about the local farmer, thinking about the local foods. And I think CSAs, community supported agriculture, is a fantastic way of doing that. You pay up front, but then the farmer grows his crops. He has the money to be able to invest at the beginning of the season, and then over the course of the growing season, you get your box every week of fresh veggies from a local farmer. And that is a whole new way of consuming local food. And it's something that a lot of people don't know about. And I think if we could spread just the awareness and the knowledge to people that options like this exist, especially for families. CSAs are fantastic for families.
Mm-hmm.
And with kids growing up, being able to introduce your kids to new and various kinds of vegetables, being able to tell your kids that, you know, Farmer Joe down the street grew these, and now we're getting to eat them. Like that's a fantastic way to like also get your kids involved in local agriculture and sort of start a trend and start growing up a new generation of people who really do value like eating locally. And so I think that is spreading the knowledge, getting people to understand that eating locally is, you know, not only benefiting you and your health, but benefiting the community.
All right, thank you, Brandon.